Hello, this is Mr. Maximus Film. This is a quick review. Well, probably won't end up being quick, but this is a quick intended review for Radiohead's 2001 album Amnesiac. And this is so I can get a review out for this week. Spring break is this week, so I'll probably have. I promise that I'm going to get out a couple more and get the wall review out this week. I know I've said that pretty much every week now, but I'm going to try to get a lot more reviews done now that school is out for a while. And this review it's not a throwaway review, but it's for me because this isn't a throwaway album. But this review is so I have a placeholder for this week, so I have a review done for this week. And what better way to do that with some Radiohead? I'm going to see them in June, which is very exciting. And I promised myself I wasn't going to do any more Radiohead reviews until I planned on doing the Radiohead discography. But I really want to talk about this album because it's one of those Radiohead albums which divides fans a lot. A lot of them think that, oh, this is just a collection of B-sides. Why would I ever listen to this? I don't even need to buy it. And some fans like me think it's really good. And I'm not just saying that because it's Radiohead. And over, the past half year, Radiohead has really become in my top 5 bands. Obviously, I wouldn't go see them in concert if they weren't one of my favorites. And I think that, in a way, this album isn't bad at all. It doesn't feel like a collection of B-sides. It was, of course, made in the same sessions as Kid A, which, if any of you watched my Kid A video, Kid A is my favorite album ever. I'm not just saying that, it's my legit favorite album of all time. Amnesiac does give off a different feel, though, despite being in the same sessions. And Radiohead, I think, intended that. And when Amnesiac was released, a lot of people thought this is going to be the guitar album. This is the follow-up to OK Computer that we all have been waiting for. They were sadly mistaken. However, it does give off a vastly different feel than Kid A. Kid A is, of course, a lot more epic and a lot more minimalistic, which creates a much more alien feel to the entire record. The entire record, Kid A record, feels entirely devoid of human life. And this is just my personal opinion, of course. I don't know if you would agree with this. It just feels like you're in a dark room. Human life has been wiped off, replaced by, the weird mutant bears. And, there's just this tiny, creepy bear smiling at you the entire time. That's kind of the vibe you get off of Kid A. Kind of this creepy, post-apocalyptic feel. Amnesiac brings it down to earth slightly. It has a much more humanistic feel, if you catch my drift. It's a lot more friendly in a way. It's, like I heard once, it's kind of like the streamlined version of Kid A. It's Kid A, but with some human qualities to it. That is a bit confusing. I don't know if that made any sense or if I'm crazy, but that's that's my take on this album. And the albums are a lot more loosely strung together than on Kid A, of course. But that originally bothered me, and I thought that it was really going to destroy the record for me. But the songs are so stand out in some moments that it just makes up for it. One of my favorite moments is You and Whose Army, which has mumbled, distorted vocals from Tom York, which is characteristic of this era of Radiohead in the early 2000s. And, with these gentle guitar chords from Johnny Greenwood, eventually Colin Greenwood comes in with a double bass, which is cool. And then, around the end, about 1 minute from the end, the piano comes in. And when he says, "You forget so easy," and then the piano comes in, it's this epic affair. It doesn't last that long, but it just is so beautifully disturbing and depressing. You and Whose Army feels like, this kind of last battle cry. You think you can take us, but it sounds so weak and it sounds so vulnerable. And the atmosphere created in that song is fantastic. So moments like that really drive this record. And there are a lot more jazz-influenced songs. Like, the ending of You and Whose Army, it sounds pretty jazz-influenced to me. Of course, the more obvious examples are Pyramid Song, which is one of my all-time favorite Radiohead songs. It probably is my favorite Radiohead song. Just a perfect combination of everything that's good about them, which is how I determine my favorite songs. That's why Dark Side of the Moon is my favorite Pink Floyd album. It's a combination of everything that's good. You know, the weird time signature with 3 bars of 3/4, and then I think 1 bar of 4/4. Weird time signature to get used to. You know, the weird sound effects going on, the introspective, Black-Eyed Angel Swam With Me, beautiful lyrics, and beautiful piano, beautiful falsetto from Tom York. The string section is reminiscent of course, like going through the desert, and when the drums come in from Phil Selway, just beautiful, brushy, jazz-influenced drums, just bliss throughout that song. And the other jazz-influenced song is Life in a Glass House, which starts out with this weird ambience, and then builds into, of course, the jazz influence section, which has jazz orchestration, or jazz brass horns. And it actually, I think they use those horns a bit more effectively than even on National Anthem on Kid A. But National Anthem, of course, gives you much more of an impression. Not to say that Life in a Glass House is a bad song, though. And it's a perfect closer to this album. Especially that line, is someone looking in. At the end, it creates a very eerie feel. And there are more guitar-driven songs. Like, the only guitar-driven song on the Kid A was Optimistic. And here you have 2. You have I Might Be Wrong, which has that cool riff from Johnny Greenwood. And then, of course, you have the Smiths-sounding song, Knives Out, which is kind of about cannibalism, probably more symbolic than that. It's kind of it's a popular song by Radiohead, Knives Out, but I like I Might Be Wrong a lot more. It's a lot more driving and leaves a lot more impression than Knives Out. And there's some weird little ditties on this album. Of course, you have a weird little electronic ditties. One of my favorites, and you're going to be surprised about this, is Polk Pole Revolving Doors. I love that song. Why, might you ask? I don't know. I don't get sick of it. It's one of those avant-garde songs that is so interesting that you can listen to it. Like, some of the stuff by Pink Floyd, like Quicksilver and all that crap, is so boring that it's just, you can't appreciate the weirdness. Polk Pole Revolving Doors is a song that you can appreciate the weirdness. It has this driving beat, this, dance beat, and it has these weird flourishes going on throughout it. And of course you have Tom York's vocals processed in this very tiny, like GLaDOS from Portal 2 voice, or the Portal franchise. I love those games. It's very computerized, and he's just listing off these different doors. There are barn doors, there's revolving doors, there's front doors, and there's trap doors which you can't come back from, and you're like, what is he tripping on? And I just really like that song. A song here that doesn't leave an impression that's, going for weirdness is like Spinning Plates, which has this backwards thing going on that, makes you feel like you're spinning around and around. And it's just, it's interesting, but it doesn't do much for me. The whole backwards thing never really fascinated me. And the other electronic song to mention is Packed Like Sardines in a Crushed Tin Box, which has an interesting title with some E's removed, some vowels removed in the title. You need to check that out. And it is a great opener for the album. That's probably the most Kid A-esque song on the record, even though it does kind of inject that humanism into it. So overall, this record gets a 9 out of 10. It's really good. The strong moments really propel it. There's a couple weak tracks, but they're not really weak. They're kind of a Radiohead weak. And it just works, in my opinion, really well. It works as a nice companion piece, pardon the honking, companion piece to Kid A. And it kind of gives a different look on the sound of Kid A, kind of that weird rock electronica of Kid A. So 9 out of 10, solid record. If you're a Radiohead fan and you don't own this, you should get it. If you neglect to get this record, it's a good record. And this is Mr. Maxim's Film. This is Radiohead Amnesiac. And I'll see you guys next time.